Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Appreciate you being here this evening. We're going to start this regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Directors of Sacramento Metropolitan Fire, and as we do traditionally, we'll begin this meeting with a pledge to the flag, and I've asked Director Jones to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Director Jones. This open session meeting is videotaped for cablecast on Metro Cable 14, replayed on Saturday, April 11th, 2015 at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and Monday, April 13th, 2015 at 6 p.m. on Channel 14 webcast on www.sacramentocable.tv. The open session meetings are also available for viewing on the district's website at www.metrofire.ca.gov. We'd now like to entertain any speaker cards that we might have for items on or not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any?
I have no speakers this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move on. I'll entertain a motion for consent.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion that we move the consent calendar.
Thank you. I have a first and a second. Any questions relative to the consent agenda? Hearing none and seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Director Monk?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Scheidegger?
Aye.
Wood?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
Barnes?
Aye.
And Gould?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to our first presentation item, 2014-2015 annual required contribution to OPEB. I have it on good authority that Captain Bailey and interim CFO Campo will be presenting this material, and Chief Wells will be over there to stay over there for a while.
Yes, I'm going to stay here, but let me kick it off.
Okay.
Well, we are actually very pleased and in a joint labor management effort that we have come to an agreement, and both parties jointly agree that we're fully funding the ARC. This year it's $13,734,755, and it's composed principally of two parts, about $7.5 million for the current retiree premiums, and then which is the pay-as-you-go amount that we've talked about, and then an estimated $6.2 million towards pre-funding the ARC as we move forward to establish that payment into the future. It is our intention to fully pre-fund the entire ARC in future years, but we do want to recognize fully that it is not a law to do that, of course. It's just a fiscally prudent thing to do. And it's basically jointly supported by labor and management. And we just wanted to make sure that everybody could understand, we could talk, in all transparency, that we definitely are working to fully fund this obligation of post-employment medical as we go into the future. With that being said, we do want to fully recognize that economic necessity down the road where the district is in some sort of unknown economic peril, that this would be something that we could definitely readdress. But for now, for 14-15, we've come to an agreement, and we're very pleased about that.
Thank you, Chief. Captain Bailey.
I just want to add and reiterate, basically last year when we came into our meet and confers, what we were looking at is we never stated that we didn't want to fund the ARC or to support OPEB. But what we want is, and what we've came up with our LOU, is we wanted to be able to meet and confer on that nominal amount as it changes annually, so that if the district is ever in an economic impact where we're forced to shut engines or to reduce our level of service for the communities, we can do that so that it's safe for everyone. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Bailey. Thank you. I'm sure that Mr. Campo has something to say to us as well.
Yes, sir. We have a presentation coming up shortly. There we go. President Gould, members of the board, we talked a month and a half or so ago about the OPEB liability and the importance of funding that, as we've discussed over the years. And I believe it was the desire of the board to have a brief overview again, to go over kind of where we stand at this point after the concessions with labor and our initiating the pre-funding of the program. So this is more or less a kind of a broad overview kind of where we are today and to reiterate the importance of pre-funding this retiree medical benefit. So with that, I'll go through the presentation. First off, just some general comments. I think clearly the promise to pay medical benefits after retirement is really no different than the promise to pay retirement benefits. So funding should follow along with the funding that we do for the normal retirement benefits. Retirement benefits are pre-funded on an actuarially determined basis, and that's what we're talking about here with the retiree medical benefit and fully funding the annual required contribution as determined by the actuarial study. Pre-funding OPEB ensures, and I'll use that term interchangeably, retiree medical benefits and OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits, which for this district is the retiree medical benefit. So pre-funding OPEB ensures that benefit is both affordable and sustainable into the future. And we'll look at a graph later that really demonstrates that point. Funding OPEB on just a pay-go basis, so just paying the minimum amount each year equal to the retiree premiums, creates an ever-growing or requires an ever-growing portion of the operating budget, which means there's less funding available for other items or expanding services or other needs of the district. So it's important to make sure that that benefit is both affordable and sustainable as we go forward. Not pre-funding, say, could lead to substantial increase in reported liabilities. I would say it would definitely lead to a substantial increase in the unfunded liability, as we'll see here shortly. Also very important is how others view that long-term unfunded liability. As far as I mentioned to the Finance Committee earlier this evening that we had a discussion with Standard & Poor's about a month or two ago where Standard & Poor's reaffirmed our credit rating of our bond credit rating of AA-, and how we addressed our unfunded liabilities was an important aspect of that rating. They understand that it's difficult for the district to focus on a liability that may not be a major problem currently when there's other more immediate needs that the district may have. But the OPEB, while the OPEB liability may not be immediate, it's something that we simply cannot avoid forever. So the rating agencies do pay particular attention to that. And to the extent that a government contributes only a pay-as-you-go toward the OPEB costs, both the OPEB costs and the total unfunded liability will increase each year, and this is a concern from a credit rating perspective. So from that perspective, they see definitely some credit positives, and that's to have a well-funded OPEB plan with reasonable assumptions. So you're not assuming you're going to earn 15% when everyone else is assuming you're going to earn 7%. They want to see a consistent funding of the actuarially required contribution, or the ARC. And they want to see effective efforts to contain the liability over time, such as I mentioned earlier. We were able to work with labor to jointly address funding the annual required contribution in terms of capping the monthly premium for actives and retirees, and having those actives and retirees actually contribute a part of that premium. And the savings, if you will, for the district are then going into the OPEB trust fund. So the Standard & Poor's saw that as a very, very positive step in the right direction. Credit concerns regarding OPEB, high unfunded liability with more liberal assumptions, funding below the annual required contribution, and then in the rapidly rising costs, OPEB costs. So they're looking for a uniform funding approach. Looking at some of the actual numbers, I apologize, it's turned out a little dark. The current unfunded liability, as it stands today, with our full funding of the ARC, is around $156 million. If you recall, when we first looked at this several years ago, back in 2011 or so, it was more like $260 million. Taking those steps of capping the monthly benefit, having the employee and retiree cost share, and taking the steps to fully fund the annual required contribution, dropped that significantly by about $90 million. And we've continued to make progress. Again, as we reported to the Finance Committee earlier, we have about $11 million in that trust fund today. So that's, you take the unfunded liability and subtract the assets in your trust fund, and that's where we come up with the $156 million. We hope to have around $14 or $15 million by June 30 as we can continue our annual required contributions plus the investment earnings. I spoke recently with the actuary and asked them what would it look like today if we stopped our funding of the annual required contribution. And that unfunded liability would go right back up again. It'd be $234 million. Again, it's a little lower than what we looked at previously because we have some $14, $15 million in the trust fund by June 30. And these numbers are as of June 30, 2015. So you can see there's an $80 million difference in the unfunded liability. And I'm sure the rating agencies would not look favorably upon the district if we were to go back up to that level. And if there was, so you can see if we only partly pre-funded, it would be somewhere in between that $156 million and $234 million level. But we're definitely on the right track. Okay, this is showing the blue line is the pay-as-you-go number. If we were not doing any pre-funding, you can see that steep increase in retiree premiums over time. The red line is what is essentially the annual required contribution that's taking advantage of investment earnings on the trust fund to keep the cost down. And this is what I was referring to about affordable and sustainable over the long term. This is over a 15-year period. So this is about halfway through the amortization of the unfunded liability of $156 million. So you can see those lines out at the end are roughly $5 or $6 million apart, and those will continue to grow over time. So this is, I think, demonstrates clearly that not doing the pre-funding, just going on a pay-as-you-go basis, would mean this benefit would not be sustainable over the long term because this would just consume such a large portion of the operating budget that we'd have to do something about the ability to provide that benefit. This is the OPEB trust fund itself over that same 15-year period as we're making the contributions. That trust balance continues to grow. By 2030, it's in excess of $60 million. So about $65 million. We're approaching halfway to our funding goal. And and I know these are all long term, so this is 30 years out, but once you hit that point where you're substantially funded that liability, then your costs really go down because you don't have that annual mortgage payment, if you will, going forward. So just to recap, a couple of points on the OPEB funding. Generally accepted accounting standards, as the chief mentioned, do not require the pre-funding of OPEB, the unfunded OPEB liabilities, but the accounting standard does dictate that we must report the liability and the funding progress in the financial statements. Many agencies have chosen the pre-fund. CalPERS SERP program, or their OPEB trust fund program, has about 450 participating agencies. And there's numerous other programs out there for funding that are run by ICMA, PARS, and some other sponsors. This is information that I was able to get from the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers at a conference last month that they happened to provide some of this data. But they're indicating that more than 20% of all public agencies in California are doing some level of pre-funding. They may not be doing the full annual required contribution, but many are funding at that level. Some are funding at a lower level, and others are just putting money in as it becomes available. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions or take any comments from the board.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Appreciate that. Members of the board, questions, comments relative to this? Go ahead.
Ken, Captain Bailey, Chief, thanks again. I think, Ken, what this really shows is while there may not be a law requiring us to do it, given the substantial financial detriment to the district over the long term, if we don't change our mindset about the funding the ARC and taking it into more of a mindset of like, we got to buy fuel, we got to pay for phones, we got to pay for radios, this is just something we got to do as a cost of doing business, it will have more significant detriment to us.
Again, I think it's the only way to make sure it's affordable and sustainable over the long term. I think it's a very important benefit, and it's something that I think we want to strive to provide to our employees, but we have to make sure that it fits within the district's ability to fund it.
Thank you. Others? Go ahead.
Yeah, Ken, thank you again for your report. Chief Ty, thank you for being here. Captain Bailey, excuse me. So if this district was to say to themselves, no, we have some things that are more important, what we'd basically be doing is we'd be hanging an anchor around a board that may be governing over the next 15 years. At some point in time, that $234 million is going to be hanging over their head, and they would have the opportunity to say, you know what, we're sorry, retirees, we're sorry, current employees, but we're not going to fund retiree health care anymore, so you guys will be on your own. And I think that this is a partnership and cooperation between the workforce, this board, and the administration of this fire district that is stepping out in front and getting ahead of a problem. And to reduce that unfunded liability by some $80 million is huge, because I know labor unions that are responsible for providing that health care, and they are faced with terrible unfunded liabilities. My own contribution to health care right now is over $11 an hour, and it is amazing to think of how much health care costs, and that someday that you may be responsible for providing it for yourself. So I think that this is a wonderful step, or a continued wonderful step. And we're further down the road, and we need to keep heading down this road and make sure that we stay ahead of this item, because retiree health care is something that everybody deserves. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Director Barnes?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. To echo the comments from the previous board members, what I've seen in some of the projections, and correct me if I'm wrong, what it looks like is because we're being innovative and planning ahead, future forecasting, that by 2030, 15 years projected numbers, I totally understand that. It shows in the trust we would have approximately $60 million, according to the payout, if we pre-fund it at $16 million. So there would be a reserve, if I'm correct, in the trust fund in order to be able to pay more towards that, or is that going to be consumed by pre-funding dollars?
The amount in the trust fund is net of net of the premium payments.
Okay.
So that's money that's being built up to ensure that those funds are available when people retire in the future. Great. So they eventually will be drawn down as needed. Right. And the goal is, sometime in the future, 30 years from now, we would just be paying the normal cost, which is the cost of the benefits that are being earned each year.
Great.
So there's no mortgage if.
Right. Great. Thank you for that.
Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
thank you. Again, thank you for the presentations from everyone. And I would like to request a email copy of the PowerPoint. Is that possible, please?
Absolutely.
I'd appreciate that very much, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Director Schreier?
Thank you, and again, to echo the earlier sentiment, appreciate this presentation and the working together, most importantly. Ken, one of the slides you showed an intersecting red and blue line, and it showed the discrepancy if we don't fund. Yeah, I think you just flashed over it, that one. So basically, the red line indicates if we do pay, and the point is, if we miss 1 year anywhere along in there, we're going to drastically change the direction of that line, isn't that? So I guess my point is,
The crossing point shifts out to the right, yes.
right. So it's critical that we maintain this for all of these years covered in the scope.
Right.
And again, I appreciate the fact that we worked together and got here at this point, and I hope we're able to continue that because it's critical. Thank you.
I just want to add also, we do have a retiree that sits on the OPEB committee trust, Chuck Ingram, who's retired. He couldn't be here tonight, but he was good with the language that we put together, and he's good bringing it to the board for vote.
Good to know. Other members, questions, comments relative to this item? Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Chief, thank you for that. That was our presentation item. This board has no action items this evening, so we'll move right on. President's report, I have none. We'll move to Chief's report. Chief Wells.
Well, good evening again. You know what? Just to report on some horrible news. On March 29th, the Fresno Fire Department has a 25-year captain who suffered some significant burn injuries. So we want to keep him and his family and the Fresno Fire Department in our thoughts and prayers. Also, we can forward to the board some information if any charitable donations and contributions of that sort. So to keep our thoughts and prayers for Captain Dern and his family at this time, and having significant procedures, but optimism and hope is in our future, so keep him in our thoughts. We'd also like to congratulate Chief Heilman, who will be taking over in West Sacramento as the fire chief, long-term actually Metro Fire's chief at the incipient of the Metro Fire. Rick Martinez is retiring as of next Friday, and Chief Heilman will be coming in. Chief Heilman was a long-term firefighter engineer, worked his way all the way up in the West Sac Fire Department, went to the City of Davis and UC Davis system, and now is coming back as the fire chief from whence he came to West Sac. So we're looking forward to that, and I'll be going to his swearing-in ceremony next week. Today we had a great opportunity. We had all the large fire departments in the state of California right here in this very boardroom, the Metro Chiefs, the California Metro Chiefs, to talk about important issues that affects all the fire districts, and the fire chiefs of the Metro fire chiefs basically cover 80% of the population of the state of California. So once again, Metro Fire, we were very pleased and honored. They were very impressed with our chambers here and what we're doing at Metro Fire, and we're very, very lucky to be part of that organization. As the 7th largest district in the state, we're obviously a significant player in that group, but a lot of good dialogue, a lot of issues up and down the state regarding everything from the drought, water shortage to EMS issues, et cetera. So great to be part of that. I had the opportunity this last Tuesday. I spoke at the Sacramento Rotary Club over at it's actually the old Radisson over there off of 160. And great group. They're a very large Rotary group of over 200 members there. I think they have over 350 members altogether. I was excited to be asked to speak. Last time I went there, I was a guest and listened to Larry Barra, the CEO of the Giants, and actually had some information to share after that with the crews. So always a good opportunity. I know we have some other Rotary meetings set up and different public speaking events and chambers and those types of things. So it's great for us to get out into the community to do that. On the 27th, we took receipt of a Type 3 engine from OES. You might have seen that as a press conference that was held, I believe it was last Friday. And that was a good opportunity for us to have our third OES resource. We have 2 Type 1 engines and 1 Type 3. And so this summer, that'll be on the road a lot. You'll be hearing a lot about dispatching up and down the state of California with Type 3s. Had a great opportunity to go to our retirement dinner last, it was on the 27th also, and I have to tell a quick story. A lot of my friends actually, and a lot of people I grew up in this agency retired, and of course, in 1995, I believe, an old crew member that I worked with for years replaced my wallet because he didn't like the shape that it was in, and he had shamed me into giving it to him because I'd had it since high school at that point. And so at his retirement dinner in 2015, he pulled it out of his jacket pocket and gave it back to me. Captain Jeff Jones, I appreciated that. However, it is no longer customary for $1 in a wallet, it's $5, so I'll be looking forward to him making up the difference. Also, I'd like to say, and we actually have Mr. Anderson here in the back here, the Firemen's Hockey Club. We talked about that. I went to the game on Saturday as a benefit for Eric Williams, who of course is suffering a brain injury recovery. He's actually doing well. Was out on the ice. But I'll tell you what, that was a quality hockey game. It was an intramural, red versus white, and I can tell you, if you ever get the opportunity to go out and watch the Firefighters Hockey Club in action, it was a great game, really entertaining. So appreciate that. Right now we have Assistant Chiefs Johnson, Shannon, and Lozano are down at the FDAC conference in Napa, the Special Districts Conference. They're getting some good education and information. And Fred Bino, who's actually going to be being retired at the end of this month, but Fred was honored as the Pep Richardson Honoree of the Year this year at the Fire Mechanics Conference. We've been hosting that for a long time. That is given each year for recognition of an outstanding service and contributions to the field of emergency vehicle repair, service, and maintenance, and for their support and enhanced promotion of professional development, training, and certification of emergency vehicles. And Fred has been just a pillar in the fire community as it relates to our vehicles and fleet. So upcoming events, we of course on May 6th have a town hall meeting. It'll be on B shift from 1 to 3 at Station 65, and that's over here by Gold River. We have a 2x2 meeting with Citrus Heights on the 16th of April. And we've talked about it before. I have the face for radio, and I'll be again on KFBK Morning News at 7:40 on the 23rd. That'll be an every 3-week deal. And, of course, we talked about it last time. June 22nd is going to be the Senior Open at Del Paso Country Club. Lots of folks, $20 million to the local economy coming in, potentially 130,000 expected to attend that event Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and it'll be broadcast in over 50 countries, excuse me. And, of course, Fire Camp is coming up the 7th through the 10th. I actually like to recognize reinstatement of on the 6th of April. Fire Investigator 2 Steve Johnson is back in our workforce. Welcome back. We have a reassignment of Captain Bob Bruce, who's coming back into the EMS division as a day staff captain. And I have to say, and ad-libbing here, not on my notes, that Barbie Law is going out to the field. Captain Law has done a tremendous job and is back out into the operation day-to-day suppression. So she's done a phenomenal job, and we really appreciated her efforts. Let's see, retirements we had on the 1st of April, Kim Angelo of 28 years. And we'd like to congratulate Captain Brian Gonzalez, who has been selected to be the backup PIO. And we have out for recruitment the communications manager, and the final filing date for that is on the 17th of April at 4 p.m. We have administrative specialists, which is the new name for secretary. We've changed the name of that. They're administrative specialists. And final filing date is on the 24th of April at 4 p.m. And, of course, the fleet manager, Fred is retiring, and we've extended that application process to 5 p.m. on the 13th of April. And that's all I have. We have Cap to Cap coming up, and that's going on the 18th through the 22nd. I believe Director Wood and Director Jones and Director Kelly will be accompanying a group of us going out to Washington, D.C. So we're looking forward to that. And that's the end of my report, unless you have any questions.
Questions for the chief? Thank you, Chief. Ops report?
Good evening, Mr. President, Board of Directors, Chief Wells. Darren Taylor, Deputy Chief of Operations for Metro Fire. In lieu of giving you a long operations report based off of the numbers that we've ran since our last board meeting. I'm just going to give you an update really quick on some fires because it's going to lead into the second part of my operations report, which will be done by Assistant Chief Pat Ellis. Since our last board meeting, we've had 3,594 calls. We've had 16 structure fires, which we're going to talk about here in a few seconds. We've already had 9 wildland fires in the month of March and April. Training hours, our folks have logged 5,276 training hours. And before I give it to Assistant Chief Ellis, I'd like to also make a couple congratulations to all the retirees. I was there with Chief Wells and the rest of our staff. What an amazing night, and to watch all of those folks walk out of here, and what I've told every single one of them, it is absolutely incredible the way that they glow compared to when they were here. And it wasn't because they were unhappy here, but the moment that you've made it, and I always tell them, job well done, they were glowing, that they successfully made anywhere from a 25 to a 35 year or 30-year career. Unbelievably proud of them. Chief Wells stated Captain Law left after a couple years being here in the administrative building, and I also wanted to say, if all of you can remember, 2 board meetings ago, I believe we went over the EPCR program that Captain Law was so instrumental in getting us into and continuing to move it forward. We said a little goodbye to her the other day, and I cannot tell you how unbelievably proud as the ops chief I was of all of the unbelievable, undeniable, extremely hard work that Captain Law did every day here, day in and day out in this building. So I know she's away right now in Canada on a little vacation prior to hitting the floor again, but from her boss, through her boss, through her boss, I just wanted to tell her how proud I was of her and thank you for her time and hard effort to make this place a better place. The whole operations staff, the assistant chiefs, the guys on the floor, we also have our prayers with Captain Dern from Fresno City. A horrific incident, as you guys have all probably seen on the news and the video that's out there. We are taking part in their SART, but I'll let Chief Ellis also communicate about that. But all of our prayers with him, the Fresno City, and his entire fire department. So for the second part of the operations report, Assistant Chief Pat Ellis is going to give a quick brief on, as all of you know, we had a Mayday call. And inside your package, you will see the blue sheet that was put out today regarding the Mayday. And also in it, he's going to brief over a quick what we call an SOG, which is a standard operating guideline that we operate in the region, and you'll see why it's so valuable when we do have an incident like the Captain Dern incident or our own or some of that we've had in the past, how we do this regionally. So with that, if there's no questions for me, I'll turn it over to Chief Ellis. Thank you, everybody.
Over the mic here. Good evening, President of the Board, Board of Directors, Chief Wells, Assistant Chief Patrick Ellis. I oversee A-Shift on the operations. Tonight, I'd like to refer you to your board packet. You were given a blue sheet, and a blue sheet is generated after an incident. It could be a near miss, it could be a fatality, it could be a Mayday call, any of the above. It's a learning tool. It's the initial report that's generated typically within the first 48 hours of an incident within an incident. So the first incident I'm going to talk to you about is a structure fire that occurred on April 2nd, just last week. It was a north wind day. It occurred over in Director Monk's area, Division 1. A call went out just before noon, and if you read through it, I have to compliment Captain Mark Nunez, who was on duty at Station 51, and I picked up the phone and called him. He got in his car and drove out there immediately to conduct an investigation. So what I'm going to go through is the incident and try to paint you a little bit of a picture as to what occurred and what we've learned from the event. A structure assignment was dispatched to 8328 Raffia Court, and for a landmark, it's directly across from Antelope High School. Directly across, there's a sound wall, and the house was faced Watt Avenue. And fire dispatch was receiving multiple calls. They dispatched what we call an S3 assignment, and that included 4 engines, 2 truck companies, 2 battalion chiefs, and a medic. So the call was dispatched. The first due engine was Engine 117. They arrived within 5 minutes of the incident. And if you refer back, we'll get to that on the when I go over the SOG, and this will make a little bit more sense to you. what they encountered was a one-story house. It was about a 1,500 square foot house. It had the old, thick wood shake roofing on it. And when Engine 117 arrived on scene, basically the whole roof was on fire, and they had several exposures, exposed house to the right, exposed house to the left, and they had a tough shed on fire behind them that initiated a vegetation fire on the other side of the sound wall, so they had their hands full. Engine 117 pulled lines. They went in. Their first action was to ensure that there was no civilians trapped inside the home, so they went inside and initiated a fire attack. The rest of the assignment arrived on scene and went to work, and I was the duty chief that day and happened to be sitting down at lunch with a division chief from West Sac, and I was listening to the fire, and I said, wow, the communications sound really good on this, and they got their hands full, and the fire was moving on, and about just at 12 minutes, a Mayday call came out, and a Mayday call in our business does not occur often, and when it does, it's very serious. And I looked to Chief Ramirez, I go, did you just hear a Mayday? And she says, you need to go. So I left and started heading that way, and sure enough, Engine 117 was just moving into a dining room area of this house, and they had a portion of the roof collapse onto them. And the good news is that there was a pretty heavy-duty kitchen table in that dining room area, and it knocked the captain. The roof collapsed and physically hit the captain, knocked him to the ground, and 2 other firefighters to the ground. And the brunt of the impact, the table took it. And so essentially, the roof trusses were on top of the firefighters, but protected them from what we feel serious injury. So the incident commander was Battalion Chief Tony Peck. The second battalion chief was Charlie Jenkins. Chief Peck, in my opinion, did a fantastic job at orchestrating the entire fire. The communications piece of this fire was critical. The operations division for the last 4 years, when Chief Holbrook had the helm, and then when Chief Taylor took the helm, it was evident that we were struggling in the fireground communications. And so with that, the assistant chiefs, deputy chiefs have been diligent on listening to basically every fire. We all listen to them. And when something does not go well, the battalion chief gets a phone call as soon as the incident calms down. I've had a few of them myself. So the fire was knocked down. Chief Peck cleared the Mayday, ensured that everybody got out. They saved a couple of houses that were adjacent to them. No serious injuries occurred as a result of this. And so if you look in the very back of your packet, there's some pictures that were taken. And I'm not a big construction guy, but Chief Wells, we came on the department around the same time, and there was a huge building spree out in the Antelope area. And I remember being a firefighter out at Station 41, and one of my captains took me into a house and was showing us lightweight roof construction. And with that, when these houses were built, and they're still using them today, they use a thing called a gusset plate. And the people in the trades understand what the gusset plate is. These are great pieces of equipment to hold roofs together. They're engineered. They do well with weight. They do not do well under fire conditions. At about 800 degrees, they fail. In this case, they had a catastrophic failure of 2 gusset plates. The roof came down. So that's why the roof collapsed. So with that, Captain Nunez went out and interviewed everybody that was involved in the incident. We pulled the audio tapes. I actually have the audio tape. I received it last night from Mark and listened to it several times last night and several times today. And I do have it available if any of the board of directors would like it. I can forward it to the clerk of the board, and you can listen to it. It's pretty interesting to hear how this thing unfolded and how they handled it, and the amount of discipline on the radio that occurred from everybody involved in it to allow us to get our members out of the house. So that's what I have to report on Raffia. Do you have any questions? Okay. So Sunday, Division 2, Director Gould on your street. I believe we had another structure fire. Director Gould witnessed our firefighters at work. And there's been some questions as to why we send the equipment that we send to structure fires. Since the regional SOGs came into play, we do what we call an enhanced response. And with that, that allows us to put extra firefighters on the ground immediately when structural components are involved in fire. For the very reason as to why we had the ability to go and rescue a firefighter or firefighters, we had extra people on scene that were standing by, a rapid intervention crew, an ambulance was standing by in the event that we had to go in and actually rescue them. We've had a few Maydays, one recently in Sacramento City with a firefighter still recovering from burns. You're aware of the Fresno fire captain that Chief Wells and Chief Taylor spoke of. He is fighting for his life right now. Chief Casantini went down and assisted in that investigation, and it's ongoing. So with the standard operating guidelines, SOG, we have SOGs that the entire region operates off of, and it came into play 2012, correct, Chief? About 2012? And so what that gave us was a tool to operate regionally off the same sheet of music. So when one of our units crosses over and goes over to the city or vice versa, we go to Folsom or Consumas, we all know exactly what's going on, what people are doing, and it's really the first alarm could be self-driven until an incident commander gets on scene and takes command of the incident, and it's really worked out well for us. When is a Mayday called? Maydays are, again, they're called when somebody is lost, injured, and it's a pretty startling voice to hear on the radio. And if you look in the back on the SOG, it goes down exactly how it works. We have an emergency traffic procedure and a Mayday procedure. So if a Mayday is called, then essentially the radios go quiet. The incident commander goes through a process to find out who's in trouble and determines on what to send in to help the member out. So that's the end of my report, and I'm available for any questions.
Chief, you mentioned a fire that happened on Linda Sioux on Easter Sunday.
Yes,
there
sir.
were, in fact, 27 individuals in the home at the time as they were gathering for Easter dinner, and none of them knew their home was on fire. A passerby driving by saw a fully involved side yard and started to effect the rescue. And I happened to have a neighbor who came to me and asked me if I knew what was going on, which I didn't. I was also having Easter dinner, and stepped outside. And before I could get about 100 yards from my home, the crews were already starting to attack that fire. And I can't tell you, not being a professional firefighter, but I can tell you that the response and a professionalism was so unbelievable to all of us just sitting there watching that I was hearing comments from the peanut gallery about just how professional and quick acting these men and women were. The family was distraught, as you can imagine. It was an elderly woman who had her children there for dinner. And it was pretty special to watch our men and women do everything they could to save the homes on either side. The home that was in the middle, fully involved, was what it was. But they did a heck of a job, and the owners of those homes came over and thanked our men and women for saving their homes as well. It was pretty special to be there. It's rare that any board member gets to see a fire running at that level, and it was pretty special. And also to then be approached by family, this large family, and asked if I could help. And so I went up to a couple of battalion chiefs. As you say, the fire kind of toned down a little bit. And the men and women did an absolutely great job of interacting with this family that truly was in crisis right there at dinner. And the men and women were attacking the fire and managing that, but there were also staff that were willing to put their arms around these family members and explain what was going on. And then after it was safe, go in and start, gathering medicines that you wouldn't think of, but the elderly woman needed her medicines right then, and then go in and try to find clothing that she could wear to her family, to the family that was going to take her home on Easter Sunday. It was spectacular. There's no other way to put it. The men and women of this organization were as professional as you'll ever see, both in fighting that fire safely and then managing the family and everybody that was there. And special kudos go out to every single one of them. I'd like, if it's okay with you, Chief, I'd like to get the names of all the individuals that were dispatched to that call. I want to personally thank them, as well as make the families aware of that, because they were besides themselves, not only with the loss, but also just with how professional our team was to that family, that extended family that literally were having dinner when they lost Grandma's home. So kudos to everyone that was there, and I'm glad we didn't have a May Day. Yeah, I'm glad that didn't happen, but
I appreciate
you guys
that.
are doing a heck of a job.
Yeah, we're very proud of our firefighters. And one thing I forgot to mention to you regarding the May Day is how do we prepare for that? And we recently had a class, or Consumas hosted a class that was called Managing the May Day, a retired battalion chief from Redwood City. I went through it a few years ago, and it was an excellent class. You go through a day of talking about, why do we go into fires in unoccupied buildings? And if we do, when is it time to hit that tripwire and get out? And then the next day, they all got to go down and actually participate in a training exercise. In addition to that, about 4 months ago, we started utilizing our Zinfandel training site, and we started hosting or putting on multi-company and multi-battalion drills to where a firefighter from Engine 41 and a captain from Engine 51, we mixed them all up, put them all together, and made them work together. And part of that exercise, we call it an inject, was handling a May Day. And so all of your battalion chiefs now, when they clear their 6-month probation, have to go through a scenario in front of their peers. It's a peer scenario, and plus the operations division, where they have to deal with a commercial fire and actually manage a May Day. So they're all. I'm very confident that if somebody else, one of our members gets in trouble again, that our people are equipped to handle it, and the firefighters do an excellent work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Chief Ellis, you and I both have been through Mayday calls.
Yes, sir.
In our careers. I want to comment on the professionalism of the crews. The public doesn't understand, in a lot of cases, a lot of the emotions and the reactions that firefighters go through on a normal fire. But when you're out fighting a fire and a Mayday comes across, or you find that one of your people has disappeared, is lost, and is unaccounted for, the emotions that our firefighters go through, it's one of their own, and we've got to find them. But the men and women of this district, the ones that I've worked with, have worked with you, involved in those situations are the most professional people that I know.
I would agree with you.
It is gut-wrenching. It hurts to the soul when somebody gets hurt, when one of our people winds up missing. We had one in Rancho that you probably remembered at a mobile home facility where one of the guys was told to go back and open up doors, wound up getting hit on the back of the head by the roll-up door that came down.
Right.
And nobody knew where he was. And the panic that each of us goes through trying to find our brother or sister, trying to make sure that they're okay and everything, hits us hard. So I really appreciate the professionalism, everything that I heard on it, et cetera, of how our people react. That's not something we can necessarily train our people for. And hopefully you never want them to go through it. But to know that the training that each of us gets better prepares us for those situations. I'm not sure how many of the board members realize that our crews have been out on Auburn Boulevard doing roof ventilations and everything, covering a lot of the same things. You don't want to say it's getting back on the saddle, but it's reinforcing that training that we give people to be in safety zones, in knowing what the roof feels like when it's spongy and it's time to get off, the fire burning underneath you. It's that repeat training that we get. It's muscle memory that we get that leads to their ultimate safety, their training, and everything else. So congratulations to everybody out there that comes home every night.
Thank you, and we're glad that nobody got hurt on this one.
Oh, absolutely.
Other comments from board members?
If I could,
Go ahead.
Chief Ellis,
Yes, sir.
you call them gusset plates?
Yes, sir.
And I knew exactly what you were talking about. We call them gang nails.
Okay.
And they are machine applied, and they have teeth all over them, and they might penetrate into the wood half an inch. But certainly, I can see in the top two photos and the one on the left where they failed all over the place, it seems like. And once a little stress gets put on them, they give away like they're nothing. So all I can say is that that's a building industry standard that everybody needs to be aware of and understand how quickly they fail, because they aren't worth the metal that they're punched out of.
Right.
All right, other questions? Thank you very much,
Okay,
Chief.
thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, we'll move on tonight. General Counsel, I'm sure you're going to hold off for later, maybe?
Yes.
Thank you. Local 522, Captain Bailey.
Thank you, Board of Directors, Chief Wells. First, I'd like to introduce you Sean Condit. He was recently elected as a director for Local 522, and he's also a captain for us.
No, just nice to meet everybody. I think I've met most of you over the years. Those that I haven't, I look forward to working with in the next couple of years.
Thank you, Captain.
Like I stated earlier, he was a shift rep for many years and recently elected as of January this year. To go along with Captain Duran down south, Fresno Fire, I just want to say thank you. We had several members that volunteered and drove down to Fresno last week to donate blood. We will be also doing some local donations for plasma. For those of you who don't know, we have Mike Fye on our board of directors. He's a Sac City captain, but he's also the International Association of Firefighters 10th District burn coordinator. And I think that shows, for one, we are a large region, one of the largest unions in Northern California, and he has a large input with ABA and the Burn Association nationally and state-driven through CPF. And I want to thank him for all the work that he's also done. So that's all I have. I appreciate the hard work on the LOU and the OPEB, Chief Wells and his staff, and I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Questions? Thank you, Ty.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll move on to committee and delegate reports. I have no report from the executive committee. Chief Holbrook on comms.
Our next meeting is Tuesday the 14th, 9 a.m. in these chambers.
Thank you very much. Director Kelly on fire rescue training, JPA.
Yes, there's a meeting scheduled for April 23rd at 4 p.m. in the at Tech Center Drive.
Thank you. Finance committee, Director Monk.
We had our finance committee prior to the board meeting this evening. We got the same information that we got. We are doing well on our finances. We can always do better, but we're doing relatively well. And appreciate all the effort that our interim CFO, Campos, and his crew are doing to keep us informed.
Thank you. Director Scheidegger on the policy committee.
Mr. Chairman, the next policy committee meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April 23rd, right here in these chambers.
Thank you very much. We'll now start with board member questions and comments. We'll start down to my left with Director Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think as we heard tonight in some of the presentations, this job that the firefighters do is inherently dangerous. And the public safety element, I would like to remind the public that when they see 3-4 engines show up, that there's a reason for that. There are contingency plans when things go bad. The last thing we would ever want, or even a homeowner would want, was to send minimal resources and then have to dispatch others, because that time can save lives. So I commend Metro Fire Chief, your staff, for doing what you do. The future forecasting on the training as far as the Mayday, that is necessary, one, to save your people, but also save homes and space for the citizens of our community. A couple things I want to talk about coming up on May 1st. Charitable organization Guns N' Hoses is having a basketball game at Intercom High School at 5 p.m. Again, that'll be May 1st. Doors open at 5, game actually starts at 7 p.m. The other thing I want to add is, I've said it before, is we talk about the water usage, the drought that's going on. Be smart with the water usage, but most importantly, if you have land, defensible space that is necessary, not only will it save your home, but it'll help the firefighters who respond, help save your home and keep them safe. The final thing I want to say, and I learned it at the safety fair with my family, is have a plan. When these homes go up, panic mode goes, and if you have thought about it, you've at least practiced it. Sometimes that muscle memory, as Director Monk talked about, will kick in, and it could save lives. So thank you for everything you're doing with your staff. You guys do a phenomenal job, first-class organization. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to add one additional date that to the schedule that our chief has mentioned. I understand that both Director Woods and myself have replied and will be attending a Rancho Cordova Chambers elected officials reception to be held on May 4th. And so if any others are interested, you can contact our clerk and get the additional information. I just wanted to add that to the calendar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Director Kelly?
I'm just happy. I am just happy that things turned out well on the May Day call, and send my condolences and my best wishes out to the family in Fresno that's dealing with the gentleman that was burned in a fire. So it's something that is, in an industry where it's a possibility, it's something that you never want to think about.
Thank you very much. To my right, Director Monk.
I want to congratulate Kim Angelo on her retirement and Mr. Gonzalez for replacing the PIO. He'll do a good job. And I hope we find some good candidates for the fleet manager positions and the other positions we have opening. We need quality people to move this district forward, and appreciate those quality people applying for the jobs and going through the testing process or selection process for each of these. That's all I've got for right now.
Thank you, Director. Director Clark?
I have nothing to add, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Wood?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief and Captain Bailey, Captain Condit, John Barsdale, you guys, appreciate all the time and effort you guys put in to get that ARC done and get it funded this year. It's a no-brainer. It's got to happen every year. I appreciate all your work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Scheidegger?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to add my best wishes to the family and to Captain Dern in Fresno. I also want to restate the obvious in terms of how proud this community should feel in terms of the working together for solving and funding the OPEB issue. Again, it's critical not only to the ongoing operation of the department and our ability to get financing and have bond rating, but it's also critical in terms of the future of our firefighters and our employees. So I'm really happy to see the work together and brought that out. Good work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Director. I'd like to first thank Fred Bino for all the work he does. Men and women of this organization couldn't show up to the fires if our apparatus broke down all the time, and he does a top-notch job with that team out there, and he'll be sorely missed. It's probably going to take 2 people to fill his shoes, so I'm not sure how we're going to work that out in the budget, but we'll make it work. Also, I'd like to thank Captain Law. It's already been mentioned. Not only did she do a stellar job on the EPCR with the team there, but the men and women and the community is going to have a great captain back in the street and a great medic, and so we're looking forward to that. I'd like to know what the hockey schedule is. By default, I'm a hockey fan through my daughter. Go Sharks. So if you can get us the hockey schedule and also a name for the hockey team. Red and white is what I heard. That's lame. From a hockey standpoint, I'd be embarrassed. Well, I want to thank the local and the administration for setting a tone for additional negotiations. By getting through this piece, it shows that all of us can make good things happen when we focus on the issues. And so congratulations to all of you that did that. That's a fundamentally huge issue. And then I'd like to just reiterate the fact that I'd like to get a copy of all the names of the individuals from our agency that showed up to the Linda Sioux. I've been asked by members of that family to do such, and we want to thank them as we would in any instance where our men and women go out and serve some 5,000 times a month. I can't write that many letters, but but I would certainly like to do that in my neighborhood. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, this board will be going into closed session. I expect to see none of you when we come back out. Thank you very much. We'll now adjourn to closed session.
All right, Jack, take care of yourself.
See you later.